This is just a quick screencast on taking effective notes, especially notes for an online class. One of the questions that always comes up seems to be, why bother with this? Essentially, we don't have face-to-face classes and lectures. Most of our information comes on reading a text that are always in front of us. So the question comes up, well, why should we take notes on these things that are always going to be with us? And the reason is that effective note-taking is one of the most important habits we can cultivate in college. Good note-taking is proven to increase reading comprehension and retention, or in other words, the better our notes are, the better our memories will be. So I have just a few suggestions to succeed in the online environment. And one of those is to not hesitate to write all over your text. A lot of the times we don't want to write in our textbooks because we want to sell those textbooks back later. However, it's a little known fact that the bookstore really doesn't care if we've written our books or not. When they check the books, they check to make sure they're not damaged, they don't have pages missing. So I suggest you write and make a lot of notes inside your textbooks and on the readings that you're working with. But before you sit down and start reading, you also need to decide what it is you're looking for and what types of things you want to keep an eye out for. For example, in this article, I was doing an analysis and looking at which types of sources the author was quoting. And so I focused on those things and I highlighted them and underlined them. I was also doing an analysis of how often the author seemed to contradict herself, and so I made comments and notes on that as well. In this text over here, this is an excerpt from Malcolm X's autobiography, by the way. I looked at a few different things. Since we've been talking about rhetoric, I was looking at the way he uses ethos and the way he uses pathos. And so I underlined sections, and I filled in the margins and wrote some notes that relate to those things. Also, since I like to use this as we discuss literacy narratives, I've highlighted the instances here where he seems to show some reflection and show some growth in his writing. And we'll jump over here to Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech. Definitely one of the most famous speeches in modern history and in American history for sure. It's also very famous for being rhetorically sound. So if we want to look at the way Dr. King uses rhetoric and find examples of logos, or examples of pathos, or examples of ethos, then we'll go into the reading with that in mind, so then when we come across those, we can make those comments, so that later on we can go look at those occasions because we've already marked them. Here as well, you'll notice that I marked when Dr. King quoted the Declaration of Independence. I also made some other quotes because I thought it was interesting who he quotes and who he refers to. So I made this comment here when he refers to some of the language from Shakespeare's Richard III. So first rule, make a lot of notes, write all over your text. The next rule is once you've done that, rewrite what you've read. Now you don't have to rewrite everything word for word, of course, that would take forever and be redundant, but I suggest you make an outline. Even if it's a goofy looking outline like this entire presentation is, you can see that it starts in the center and then goes counterclockwise. Make some sort of outline, go through it section by section and write out what are the main ideas, what are the follow-up ideas, and then once you've done that for each section, write a paragraph on how this applies to your own personal writing process so that you can have something to apply to the way you're working, the way you're going about your schoolwork and your classwork. And then after that, since we are in an online course and we have a lot of discussions online, share what you've learned. You're going to have to go through the process of having the online discussion anyways. So you're going to be more effective in the discussion board if you've already gone through this process of taking notes, of writing out some of the most important ideas, some of the main points, one of the follow-up ideas, and you're already going into the discussion with something important to say. And at the same time, since you've studied more in depth, you'll be able to take more away from your classmates' discussion and the comments they make on your information as well.